Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spherical Chickens in a Bacon, which is a YouTube channel about science, ethics, and deontology, scientific deontology. I'm here to speak about something that blew up on social media that became really popular in the last few days, and it's something to connected to peer review and ethics, correct behavior in peer review. And it's related to this paper, origin of the distinct site occupations of hydrogen atoms in ACP, titanium, and zirconium hafnium, which was written by these authors from China, I guess, on a journal from Elsevier, the publisher Elsevier, which is called the International Journal for Hydrogen Energy. I just want to remind that Elsevier is probably the oldest publisher of scientific papers. It has like hundreds, if not thousands, of different journals and books. And most of the journals are considered to be good quality or even reference journals in the specific field. Okay, maybe the average is not as high as Nature, but it publishes much more than the Nature Publishing Group, which is part of Springer. Now, but I don't want to speak. So there are no real problems about the content of this paper. This is a quite nice paper. I enjoyed reading it. I'm a material scientist myself, so I could understand the contents of this paper. But then I found I went online and I searched a little bit of statistics on this journal before discussing the matter. And as you can see, especially if you check the citations per document, which is in the top right, which is something very close, if not exactly the same, of the impact factor, you can see that this journal became quite popular in the last, 24, 25 years. So, yep, it's not even a low tier Elsevier journal. I would consider it to be a medium high tier. Of course, there are better journals, but especially in this field, this looks like a solid journal. Also, if you look at the total sites and self sites, the ratio, okay, is a little high, but it's not extremely high, meaning that the articles that are published in this journal don't suffer from authors trying to inflate their own ego, trying to inflate their own bibliometrics indexes, which points out to a pretty decent journal. Of course, these are numbers, doesn't mean that everything is done in the proper way, just an overview of the journal itself. What is the problem? The problem in that paper is not the content, the scientific content of the paper itself. The problem is the presence of this sentence. As strongly requested by the reviewers, here we cite some reference 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, although they are completely irrelevant to the present work. What does this mean? It means that the author sent this manuscript to the journal. The journal picked an editor. The editor needed to take care of this manuscript, so he sent the manuscript for peer review. So the editor thought, oh, this is nice. Let's see what the peer reviewers have to say. He sent it to a bunch of peer reviewers. Some reviews come back, and someone in the peer review asked the authors to introduce extra papers in the references. Extra papers that seem they are not quite connected to the contents of the paper. This is ethically unacceptable, deontologically unacceptable. This is something that should, of course, not be allowed. But it's something that happens every day. Even for me, last day, I received 4 reviewers' responses, and 3 of them asked me to add more papers, and they're papers about their own research, allegedly. And they were trying to force me to introduce extra references that were not related to the content of my paper. So this is a big problem. This is a very common problem, and it's getting bigger with time, probably. Then let's open a little bit of a discussion here. There is a completely different point of view between like Southeast Asia countries and plus America and European about forcing authors to add references. I mean, Most Europeans think that it's not very professional to ask authors to add papers from the reviewer itself. So if I receive a paper and I read the paper and then I ask the authors, please cite Elia Marin et al. In this, and this paper. This in Europe is seen as not a very good behavior. In other countries, is very common actually, and they don't even understand what the problem is. But I'm not speaking about this. Meaning, if you ask to add some references, then the references are related to the content of the paper, then okay, we can discuss if it's a good behavior or bad behavior, but it's somehow an allowed behavior because it's relevant. It's relevant to the paper itself. If you ask to cite papers that are not connected to the paper, to the manuscript in any way, then that is not acceptable. This is not deontologically correct, ethically correct, and should not be allowed. Of course, you can tell me, oh, but the authors should have just gone to the editor and say, oh, the reviewer is asking us to add these papers and we don't think it's fair. This doesn't really happen often because the authors want to publish, so in the end, they just accept what the reviewer. But of course, the reviewer are pressing and they hold the power. They can decide if the paper is published or not, or they can have a good influence and big influence on the final result. You can go to the editor and complain, but many people decide to just add the references and get it over as soon as possible. Okay, so this is probably not the best, but this is also a response to something that has become more common and more pressing in academics recently. So a lot of people don't even care. So I really much appreciated that these authors made this statement because they're just pointing out that this happened. There are hundreds of thousands of paper out there with references that are absolutely unrelated, that are completely bullshit, but no one cared about, and the authors did not report it. Sometimes reporting is also not a good idea because many editors that I also met don't really care about these things. So they just ask you, oh, reply to the reviewer with that complaint with the reviewer, etc. They just ignore it. And well, good journals have good editors, and good editors take proper care of these things, but it's not always the case. Okay. And then I, like anyone else, I opened the list of these references, and they all look more or less the same. They have more or less the same authors, and in particular, there's two names that stand out. There's this Trukhanov Alex, and there is this Trukhanov Sergei. Now, I know what you're thinking, and in the internet, many people is claiming that these two are brothers. I don't know, and I don't really care if they are brothers or not. What I care about is a little bit of their history. And I went to check their history. And what I found is that after 2017, when they joined an academy university in Russia, they are from Belarus, they joined an academy in Russia, suddenly their profiles exploded and they got really popular and they published a lot and they received a lot of citations. Is this enough to say that they are behaving in a non-correct way? Well, actually not. Most of these papers are born from collaborations with Arabic countries, with China, with other countries in the east of Europe. So it's very difficult to claim that there's some fault play here. Of course, 55 papers per year, 45 papers per year, 40 papers per year. These are suspicious values, very high values, because it's difficult to look at the papers, read the papers, understand the contents with so many papers. But this opens a completely different discussion that I don't want to go in details here about what is an author. So is the author only the person that makes a scientific contribution, or is also the person that brings the money, or is also the boss of the institution. In the medical field, a lot of directors force all of their employees to put their names in the paper. So this inflates their CV, of course, and the indexes just go to the skyrocket. So this is a little bit about what you think is an author and who should be an author, which is open to discussion and not really on topic. But most of the people just stopped here. Most of the people discussing about this paper just stopped at this point. I went a little bit further. I actually spoke with the authors of the papers and with the suspected reviewers. And I received quite interesting answers from both of them. Of course, the author that replied to me, only one, which is the Alex one, was very kind, and actually he helped me a lot. He said that yes, he recognizes that bibliometry is taking control of the life of the academics. He recognizes that this is not a good behavior. He sees it like an editorial issue more than a reviewer issue, and he claims he was not the reviewer of this paper, which is something that I cannot 100% say is correct or true or false. This is not really up to me. And he also points out that he doesn't have a group, so he collaborates with a lot of people, so maybe someone else in this group introduces this paper. Well, it's up to you to decide what you think, but even if whatever you think, you cannot know what is true or not, because the name of the reviewer will not be made public. You will never know for sure. You can suspect. All of us have our suspicions, but you cannot say that it's 100% this or it's 100% that. Well, Alex was very kind, and I really appreciated his answer. I cannot show you the emails. He explicitly requested me not to show you the contents, and we will see. We will see in the future what happens. But what I found interesting is the answer of the authors, because all of us imagined that all of the 13 papers were suggested by just one reviewer, but he was actually two reviewers. One reviewer suggested 10 papers, and the other reviewer suggested 3 papers. And the style of the review was the same from 2 different people, allegedly. And the list of papers to cite did not overlap, and they came from the same authors. And this opens another question and another completely different problem. And it goes back to what Alex said, the editorial issue. Why the editors sent the same paper to review to people from the same research group that clearly spoke together because the answers were aligned? Okay? Why? This should not happen, because you want to have reviews with different points of view from different research groups as much as possible. It happened to me only once. I think that both me and my previous boss got the same paper to review, but it was a mistake from the editor because he read basically our affiliations were a little bit messed up. So he took the second affiliation from me and the first affiliation from my boss. So he thought we were from 2 different institutions, but we were not. Usually you want opinions that are a little different, a little far apart. So you ask people from different groups. And this suddenly reminded me that it was not the first time I heard the name of that journal. And so I went back and I searched on Retraction Watch, and what I found is that this journal, has a history of retracted papers. We have one here, one there, another one, but the most interesting article about it is this one. So in this group of 26 papers that are retracted or going to be retracted by Elsevier, 10 come from the same journal, and it's the International Journal of Hydrogen Energy we were speaking about. So 10 out of 26, which is a huge amount. And why they were retracted? Mainly because of peer review manipulation and unexplained authorship irregularities. Okay, so someone messed up at an editorial level, and this is a more serious problem because the editorial level should be the one that makes that sure that the rules are respected, because there will always be some authors trying to take advantage of the situation for themselves. There will always be, and it's up to the editors of the journal to take care about it. And it seems that this was an issue in this journal. Elsevier did not do anything in the past, and it slipped again. Something happened again, and not only the issue with asking people from reviewers from the same group, which maybe it's even acceptable. It's just usually not done. But no one checked the paper after. No one noticed the sentence after. It means that they're doing a sloppy job, and they are the professionals that should take care of this. So I have a very complex issue about this, because from one side, the things are not done in the correct way, and they don't even care to teach, to make sure that the authors know how to behave. This is not something that they really care about. And this is the largest issue. Of course, we can just point fingers, oh, this time it was that reviewer and that problem, etc., but the problem is much larger than that. There are hundreds of thousands of papers that contain bogus citations, and editorial boards don't seem to really care about that. And I think it's all for today. Thank you for listening. See you next time.